He banned the wrong note. Then the theater caught fire. 1. At 9:17 p.m., black smoke drifted backstage into the Grand Northern Theater. All 41 musicians caught the smell. Every one of them knew the note that could stop the show. A note not written in the score, a high, piercing sound meant to shatter the harmony. But no one played it. Elira, the young violinist who knew that note better than anyone, kept her bow moving. She herself had voted for the rule that banned it. 2. The theater had carried one sanctioned mistake for 300 years. Any musician who noticed smoke or a collapsing beam could, without waiting for the conductor's permission, strike the highest string and sound a jarring discord ugly enough to make the audience look up, ugly enough to stop the performance cold. The musicians called it the wrong note. In 300 years, it had sounded twice. Both times, the audience made it outside before the fire spread. 3. The year the new conductor Valak took the podium, the theater was on the edge of bankruptcy. In front of the patrons, he made a promise. "I will erase failure from this theater." At the first open rehearsal, a young oboist missed a note. Valak stopped the performance and made her stand before the packed hall. "The audience isn't paying for your nerves," he said. The patrons laughed and applauded, calling her trembling a professional's baptism. She was let go before the day was out. The next morning, a new rule appeared on the wall. Any musician who played a note outside the score would be dismissed, no exceptions. Elira's own grandmother had once been a player in this orchestra, the very woman who had sounded the wrong note and saved the audience from a fire long ago. Even so, Elira didn't tear the notice down. 4. For 14 years, Elira had wanted only one thing: the first violin chair. Valak offered it to her on one condition: report anyone who breaks discipline. She wasn't willing to lose 14 years of work over a single sheet of paper. She reported a player who came in a beat late. She wrote down the name of Jonas, the old cellist who still clung to the old techniques under watch. Valak didn't fire him yet. He simply began waiting for Jonas to make his next mistake. 3 players left the orchestra. The sound tightened. The seats slowly began to fill. After one rehearsal, Jonas told her, "Your bow never slips. That's why you can cut people down without making a sound." Elira glared at him. "Would you rather protect the incompetent and let the whole theater collapse?" "No," Jonas said. "When a theater is about to collapse, you keep alive the one person who's still willing to say so first." 5. 2 weeks before opening night, Jonas caught the smell of scorched cloth during rehearsal. Without hesitation, he raised his bow and sounded the old warning. The performance stopped. The patrons rose from their seats. But there was no fire, only a candle backstage that had singed an old curtain. Valak called Jonas to the center of the stage and, in front of the patrons, said, "This old man tried to send 400 people running over a smell. Fear is not music." Jonas was dismissed on the spot. On his way out, he stopped in front of Elira. "A warning isn't there to be right," he said. "It's there so you can be wrong before it's too late." That night, Valak pinned the silver mark of first violin to her chest. 6. On opening night, the theater was full. To perfect the acoustics, Valak had ordered the old backstage vents, sealed with heavy cloth. During the third movement, Elira caught a smell that wasn't rosin. She looked toward the wings and saw black smoke crawling along the floorboards. A stagehand was signaling frantically to Valak. Valak saw the smoke too, but he didn't stop the performance. He mouthed a single order: "Don't close the curtain." If the music stopped, the contracts, the reputation, everything the night was worth would be lost. Elira looked out at the audience. A girl in the front row was coughing into her hand. She raised her bow. Her eyes met Valak's. He gave the smallest shake of his head. "Miss one note and you're finished." Illyra pressed her bow to the highest string and played the wrong note. 7. A sound like a scream cut through the theater. But the performance didn't stop. Valak immediately raised his baton and folded Illyra's discord into the music, turning it into a new cue. The trained orchestra followed. The flute picked up the note. The viola built a chord around it. In seconds, the ensemble had absorbed one person's warning and turned it into a performance. The audience thought it was staged. Some even applauded. Illyra understood in that instant that one wrong note could always be explained away by the conductor. But if the entire orchestra refused to play, there would be nothing left to explain. She stood up. Valak grabbed her arm. "Sit down," he said. "You'll never perform again." She pulled her arm free. "Then let tonight be the last one." She sounded the warning again, and this time she didn't stop. The violinist beside her stood. Then the next. The cellos joined. The horns joined. 40 instruments, each striking its own wrong note. It no longer sounded like music. The girl in the front row pointed backstage and screamed. The audience surged toward the exits. On the podium, Valak kept conducting to no one. 8. The fire burned through half the backstage, but every musician and every member of the audience made it out alive. Valak was removed from his post. The papers called Illyra a hero, and the theater made her its new conductor. But there was no money to rebuild what had burned. The patrons who funded the reconstruction attached one condition. The note from that night would be kept as the centerpiece of the reopening performance. Illyra objected. But refusing the condition meant the theater and the jobs of 40 musicians would not come back. In the end, she was the one who signed the contract. A year later, the rebuilt theater held its reopening night. In the final movement of the score handed to Illyra, a new passage had been added in gold lettering, "The Fire Chord," a formal reenactment of that night's warning. The theater used it in its advertising and sold tickets at a higher price than ever before. The audience waited for the moment it would sound. On the third night of the run, a young violinist backstage caught the smell of something actually burning. She ignored the score and sounded the warning. Laughter rippled through the audience. They assumed she'd simply come in 5 minutes early. A thin trail of smoke rose from the wings. The young musician looked up at Illyra on the podium. Illyra looked down at the gold-printed note in her score, then past it at the smoke behind it. If she stopped the performance now, the theater would be mocked again for selling fear. If she didn't, the same question that had once followed her would follow her still. The wrong note was no longer forbidden, but it was no longer a warning either. Final question. Which was more dangerous, the conductor? Who banned the wrong note or the theater that turned it into a show?